mentioned Ted Cruz. He's in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is one of those odd political ducks. So when it is among the states voting, really 14 delegates are clearly up for grabs when it comes to the winner of the state gets those delegates. The other 57 delegates are part of an uncommitted slate, but the thinking seems to be that they will follow the will of the people. In other words, let's say Donald Trump wins that state, he would win those delegates. It's not a sure thing. It's not a given thing. We know what's happened with uncommitted delegates. You can fight for them independently, try to woo them over. If not in Pennsylvania now, later on at the convention. And Ted Cruz has been very, very good at that. Donald Trump a little late to the party, but he's called that kind of a process. We have to do that, kind of rigged, but the rules are the rules. All right, I want to focus on something that's going to happen after these 172 delegates that are up for grabs on Tuesday. You hear a lot of talk about Indiana and the 57 delegates there. That is sort of like the beachhead for the Cruz folks. That is where they hope to make their kind of last stand. They're not saying last stand, but a lot of political pundits are, who say that if he can't win there, he can't win anywhere. And right now he is trailing in the Hoosier State, 41 to 33%, with Kasich at 16%. Those are the latest Fox News polls coming out of Indiana, where we don't get a lot of polls, but that's the latest preference. Bob Vander Plaats is a national co-chair for Ted Cruz. Bob, what do you think of those poll numbers? Because this is as close, that is Indiana, to a must-win state as any. Would you agree with that?
Well, I do think Indiana is going to be a pivotal state, and we're really looking forward to competing very well in Indiana. I think those polls represent a lot like Wisconsin did before we went into Wisconsin. You know, Trump had the lead. He gets all the media attention. But once they get to know who Ted Cruz is, I think they break, and they break solidly for Ted Cruz. The other thing you're seeing in here, Neil, is that John Kasich is still being basically the spoiler, providing the block for Donald Trump. We all know this is a two-person race. Hopefully Indiana and the Hoosier State, they vote well. And it's a race to 1237, either before Cleveland or at Cleveland. I think those are the two critical races going on right now.
So, Bob, would you say that if your candidate does not win Indiana, he's in a world of hurt?
Well, I don't know about that, because as Reince Priebus said, hey, it's 1237, and close doesn't count. And those are the rules of the game. So the whole thing is, if Donald Trump can get to 1237 before Cleveland, our hat is off to him. He did it, and the people spoke. But if he doesn't get to 1237 before Cleveland, then I think what you see is the Cruz campaign and their mechanism for the convention, the delegates in Cleveland. I think that's going to pay off very well. And I think Ted Cruz then becomes very successful at Cleveland.
You've heard, obviously, the Trump people who agree with their candidate that it's a rigged system in that event, that if he gets to Cleveland, Bob, with hundreds of delegates ahead of your guy, and then your guy can win, let's say on a second ballot, there's something wrong with that. You say what?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, it's not a rigged system when you go in and you go to buy the car and it comes with all the options that you thought it was going to have, and that's what Donald Trump is seeing. I mean, he went into this campaign knowing you need to get 1237 before Cleveland or 1237 at Cleveland. And, Neil, there's a lot of delegates that were committed early on in the race who might, quite frankly, have buyer's remorse today. We're seeing that in Iowa, where I bet 80% of the delegates going to Cleveland are already committed for Cruz, and the other ones are undecided.
Well, couldn't it go the other way around, though, Bob? Couldn't a lot of your committed delegates get second thoughts on him, saying that he has not comported himself well, or he's not done as well as they thought in follow-up primaries, that in a lot of these states that are up for grabs, for example, on Tuesday, he's running behind John Kasich, the guy who wants out of the race. So they might be saying of him, well, I don't want to stick our wagon to that horse.
No, I don't think so. Our district convention was only held a couple of weeks ago. And these are the delegates that were elected by their peers to go to Cleveland. And these are the ones who I'm saying are already committed to Cruz. I mean, they're saying, no, I'm definitely Ted Cruz. And they like what they're seeing in Ted Cruz, of his message of jobs, freedom, security, and about bringing the party together. Donald Trump has united the party, but basically has united the party against him, where Ted Cruz has united the party around his principled conservative message going forward.
Are you surprised that at this stage in the game, when it comes to evangelical support, of course you're very big in the evangelical community, your endorsement proved crucial as it has in prior races, the candidates you've anointed or blessed to Ted Cruz, but that a good portion of that community likes Donald Trump?
Well, I think what it is, I mean, evangelicals are no different than, anybody else in America. They see a broken down Washington that needs leadership. They're very frustrated with Washington, and that is an emotion that Donald Trump has tapped into, and I give him all the credit in the world for tapping into that emotion. But now we need to find a leader who actually knows how to put this thing back together and put the country on the right path. And I think people are seeing Ted Cruz as a serious candidate who has serious solutions to these issues.
Do you think, Bob, that if Donald Trump were to sort of settle this or try to settle this before the convention by going to Ted Cruz and saying, be my running mate, it's over? Your candidate would accept that?
Well, first of all, I don't think Ted Cruz would accept that. I think he really believes he has a great shot to be the nominee and to be the president.
For the life of me, I've yet to run into a candidate who's been offered that and turned it down. I'm sure there are, but I can't remember.
Well, I've been around politics a long time, just like you have, Neil, and there's a lot of strange things that take place. And this year is uncharted territory. I mean, you have 3 candidates in the race, and you have the third one in the race who's running fourth in a 3-man race. And so we don't know what's going to happen, but I do know.
You're saying he's running fourth because he trails in delegates Marco Rubio, which brings my next question. Could you see your candidate pulling something maybe dramatic, maybe hooking up with Marco Rubio before the convention to stop this Trump momentum?
Well, I think if nobody gets to 1237 before Cleveland, I think every option becomes on the table. And everyone's going to try to maneuver to make sure that they're the nominee, that they have the best shot to become the nominee for their party. And so I think Ted Cruz will take a look at all of his options. I don't think he's ready to disclose any of those options. But I do know that his focus is on being the nominee and being the standard bearer for our party that Republicans can really uphold.
Do you think that if let's say on Tuesday, Bob, Donald Trump, who has a lead in the polls in Pennsylvania, wins Pennsylvania? I know they have that 57 delegates that are uncommitted slate. Do you think that those delegates should go to Donald Trump in that event?
I don't want to speak on behalf of the delegates in Pennsylvania. I do think, obviously, it's a different system where I think the 17 will go with whoever wins the state, but the other 57 are completely up for grabs. And typically,
but I know they're up for
57,
grabs, but do you think they should follow the will of voters there? That if Donald Trump wins, there really is.
Well, I think what they'd have to do is search their own heart on where they land on that. And if they believe, we need to be a principled conservative and get behind Ted Cruz, and I'd welcome them to do that.
All right, Bob, always a pleasure. Thank you very, very much.